This morning we're going to go out and cut a big 34-inch post oak tree. This tree is just south of us here, about 4 miles on the way to Poultry, Texas, and we're going to take this tree down that died from canker disease. It is a large tree with a rather wide spread, so it's going to take some special effort to cable it and make it fall 90 degrees to the way it wants to. So we're going to force it to go our way. We'll get ready and go rig it and get it down this morning. Now last night we had a storm blow through that dropped a 1/4 inch of rain with a lot of heavy winds, but it shouldn't affect what we're doing today. So we're going to get on the road as soon as we gather up our saws here and go cut trees. I wanted to take a moment to explain what we were up against with this tree. It had some unusual problems we had to overcome. And here was basically it. The tree was very close to the house. It had some big limbs stretching over the house and some really wide, unusually wide, big limbs down 12, 15 feet off the ground that were just going horizontal. So the tree had a wide spread to it. The tree also had this lean. It wanted to fall right this way. If I had just cut the tree, that's the direction it would have went. What we needed to, for safety though, is we needed it to fall this way. Therefore, some steps I had to take was, one, we put a cable around the tree about 15 feet up in the air, run a cable to this tree, strap around the tree so it wouldn't damage it, with a snatch block and back to this trailer and hooked a 15,000 pound winch to it. Well, anytime I pull a tree like this that's slobbled away in the neighborhood of 25,000 pounds or something, it literally drags my trailer and truck backwards, the winch does. So I have anchored the trailer around this other tree so it can't drag it backwards. So we tightened this cable, and then I began doing the cut. This big tree, to give you an example of what I think, we wanted it to go this way, and it wanted to go that way. So first thing I did was done a back cut through here on the tree. Side view of the tree would look like this with a side cut. Once we got a side cut on the thing, then I started cutting from the back a little higher than the side cut with my chainsaw. Started here and just progressed back through the tree with a chainsaw, but because I wanted to turn this tree, turn it this way, as I progressed in here, I began to taper my chainsaw cut till I ended up with a wedge-shaped hinge to hinge it off of. The being was, it's leaning this way, so you need more strength in this area here to hold the tree up from breaking over before it can swing the direction you made your cut on the thing. So this is a normal practice, and with the help of the winch pulling it over, this hinge should have held the tree from falling the way we didn't want it to. So once I got this cut made, we let the winch start pulling, and that was to keep directing the top of the tree in line with where we wanted it to go. And of course, at one point you can see the tree fell. It finally started falling, and when it fell, it didn't do what we wanted it to. What the tree done is it fell right here with limbs everywhere. So it basically split the difference between where it wanted to go and where we wanted it to go. Some of these limbs kind of shattered that little crepe myrtle tree that was there. So when the tree is on the ground, go back and look at the stump to try to figure out what the problem was. Why did it not do what we had designed this whole setup to do? And this is the number one thing that gets so many people hurt cutting trees. You cannot see inside a tree. You don't have any idea what's happening in there. Now you can look for signs up and down the tree like rotten limbs or open wounds and so forth, and try to determine, is the tree solid where you're going to cut it. But it's not unusual to cut trees and find a rotten core in them. This one here though was even more tricky. The core was not rotten or wasn't hollow. What happened was this tree had developed canker disease, and this area of the tree right through here was all punky, rotten, soft wood. That didn't show on the outside because it was covered with bark, but it was weak wood. So what happened when the tree started to fall, and given its tendency to want to go that way, it ended up breaking this hinge off out of this rotten wood. So this was the only viable part of the hinge holding the tree, which allowed it to tilt away even though we were pulling. One of the problems you have when you're pulling a tree on a cable, once the tree starts to fall, you cannot wind the winch faster enough. The tree will fall faster than the winch will wind. So to start off with, you may be pulling in a direction, but as the tree leans over, it falls faster than the winch can outrun it, and you end up losing this cable advantage if it doesn't start. Well, the hinge should have took care of that, but the rotten wood we couldn't see allowed this to happen. So you never know what's inside a tree. It's always dangerous anytime you cut one. So be aware that some of this stuff will just be a problem, and you just have to deal with it. I showed the owner this issue after the tree fell, and he wasn't too worried about the crepe myrtle. We trimmed up what was left of it, and it'll grow back into a flowering tree all right. This big oak here that was already out there, it didn't hit it with any big limbs enough to break limbs off it. So really there was no damage done in this situation. This thing could have been a problem if there had been any structures or whatever close by. So that's why you always want to clear a big area around where you'll fall a tree. This could have been a problem, but in this case it didn't. We just dealt with it and went ahead and started cutting the tree up into usable wood from here. What we're doing here is examining the cut on the tree. We had to make a wedge kind of cut to swing the tree to the left. It really wanted to go 90 degrees to the camera view. And we had a cable pulling it to the left of the camera view, and the tree should have fell straight away from the camera. Right behind me there. Should have fell in a straight line right straight back. It didn't, because as the tree started to bend over, the wedge shaped cut I had made, it broke the wood. And what we're doing, we're examining, and that tree had a rotten spot down that side of it. This is one of those unknown things. You never can see inside a tree, so you don't know what's going on. But as that tree started to bend over from the cutting we were doing, what it done, it ended up breaking that rotten wood off. So the tree didn't fall straight back. It fell at about a 45-degree angle, which was good enough for this job. The tree really wanted to go straight right, so we did curve the fall somewhat. Not perfect. Now Tim is showing the owner there, JL, the rotten wood and how it messed up. The only damage, because the tree didn't fall precisely where we wanted, is it knocked a few limbs off a small crepe myrtle tree over there. But overall, everything went just really good with this, considering how rotten that wood was right there that was supporting most of the hinge. This is the landowner, JL, that's walking up here. JL's nearly 80 years old, and let me see if I can relate this story to you like he told it to me. His dad bought this couple of 100-acre farm back in the 1920s and farmed it, and JL continued to farm it as he got older. And his son, though, hadn't been interested in the farm. So when we started cutting these trees down, we started talking about what to do with it, and he asked me one favor. He wanted me to slab that big trunk there, and from that big slab, he wanted to make his son a work table for his shop, just to remember the old farm by. So at the end of this video, you'll see where we took this big log and slabbed it into 5 different slabs is what it made. And after I dried a couple of years, I'll get one of them back to JL so he can make a workbench for his son out of this. This is where a lot of help is really appreciated. Cutting up a big tree, limbing it, getting it down to manageable sizes takes a lot of help. And it sure is nice when you have a large group like this to help out. If you like this video, please hit the like button down at the bottom. Also subscribe to our channel. That will get you a notice of future videos that will be coming out, and also just let us know how much you enjoy these videos and the things we're trying to pass on to you. This is mostly a learning channel, so subscribing to the channel helps us keep motivating us to go on and make more of these videos. What we're doing here is I have wrapped the cable around the main trunk of this tree. We're going to roll it over about 180 degrees because it's now resting on the limbs, and that's very dangerous to cut those limbs with all that weight down. So since we've already cut the limbs off the top of the tree, we're going to roll the tree over to make it safe. Trees like this that are resting like that are so dangerous and often called widowmakers because the danger they pose to anybody trying to use a chainsaw down under them.
we will successfully roll this log over, and then it'll be much safer for us to finish cutting it up.
That's all that good, George.
As you can see here, Lee has brought up my 24-inch Stihl 461 saw. This is a real timber saw that has a lot of power, and it will cut through this log pretty fast. But it's 24-inch bars what I carry on the thing. Now here comes Tim. We're going to cut the log too. He's got my Stihl 661 that has a 36-inch bar on the thing, and you have to use big saws like this, and these are full professional timber saws, and I use them a lot. One thing is they are so strong horsepower wise, and they spin that chain so fast they go through chains like crazy because of the chain speed. So I have started buying chain for these saws in big reels and then making up my own chain. It saves me a lot of money, but you know, after 4 or 5 sharpenings, these big timber saw chains, they're pretty well dull and need to be replaced. Here you see Lee down on his hands and knees like you have to do to cut off this huge tree stump right at ground level. These things are always a problem. As you see, that 36-inch bar on that chainsaw is not even really reaching all the way through. And the other problem is, like Tim's changing the chain here, a lot of times when trees grow, as they grow upward, they pull soil up in the root ball. And quite often when we cut these off, we may go through 3 or 4 chainsaw chains that'll get dull because they're trying to cut through dirt that might be in the middle of these things. So we just change the chains as needed, but it's always a slow, hard process, and it is really hard work on the guy that's down on his hands and knees trying to force this big saw through that stump sideways. It's not any mechanical advantage on it. So we'll get it cut off so that the landowner can mow over it. We'll cut it right at ground level if we can. But it's really hard on these chainsaws, and it's really hard work. But it's something that we need to do. One of those interesting stories, Tim, you see here, that's driving in the wedges. Him and me both were Dallas firemen for quite a few years. And way back in the 80s, 1980s, I made captain. They sent me to station, and a few months later, Tim made driver, and they sent him over, and he was my driver for a while. And we had buildings fall on us, and we were blown out of buildings and so forth. Typical fireman stuff. And we worked together for 2 or 3 years, and I ended up having to move to another station, and Tim went on and become a captain. We both retired as station captains, and which was also kind of funny because we were working in stations adjacent to each other, so we're still making fires together because we would both respond. So me and Tim have known each other so dang long that dang, when we work these jobs like this, we almost know what each other's thinking. He has got a sawmill and does a lot of tree work also, so this is no new thing to him. So one of those things, you have friends you develop over the years, and sometimes that friendship lasts 30, 40 years. Alright, the big 34-inch log we wouldn't cut down. That's what it looked like here Thursday morning. And that's what's left of it. We have cut it into slabs. I'll show you in a minute. But once you get down, it seems like there's some wood here, but if you look the other end, it sure tapers off in a hurry. So, took us about 7 hours to cut 5 slabs out of this thing. A chainsaw mill is not a fast operating machine, but we got it cut up, so we are through with this thing. All right, here's the slabs that we cut up. 5 of them. Biggest one was 34 inches across. Kept running into problems though. You see the black stain? That's old nails, and since they're close to the center, those nails have probably been in that tree 50 to 75 years. They literally rusted apart, but they left the stain. The tannin in oak tends to do that. Now, right here, where the pink chalk is about a 20 penny nail that is fresh, or fresher enough, maybe 10 or 20 years ago, but it was still totally intact, but the chainsaw mill cut through it. Now, I lost a couple of teeth off that chainsaw mill, but it went through it. Now, all that's left to do with these slabs is I need to anchor seal the end grain on them, and we'll take them and put them in our storage barn out of the sunlight and let them dry for approximately 2 years before they're going to be dry enough to make something out of. But they're really beautiful wood. It ought to make some great tables, but 2 years from now at least, and maybe 3 depending on how fast they dry, that we can take and do something with them, make some beautiful work out of them.
I apologize about not showing you how we cut all of these big slabs up with our chainsaw mill. The day we cut them up, the wind was gusting 25 miles an hour plus, and we were afraid to set up camera equipment that it would literally blow them over off the tripod stands and damage the cameras. We will be doing more slabbing with that big chainsaw mill, and I'll show you in future videos.